welcome back. Today in the studio, I'm making Roaring 20s dresses. A few weeks back, we were talking in my tester group about fun ideas for the new year. And since it's going to be 2020, a Roaring 20s dress design came up. I thought it was a really fun idea, but when I started drafting it, it kind of started to look like a color blocked drama dress. So instead of doing a completely different design, I decided to just do a tutorial here on my YouTube channel. This way you don't have to buy another pattern if you already own the drama dress. And if you, for some reason, don't own the drama dress, check the description. There is a coupon code to get 50% off. The listing is linked in the description as well. So in this tutorial today, we are going to do one dress in the full version of the pattern and one dress with the slim cut version. That way all of our bases are covered and you will definitely have a vintage style 20s dress, no matter what style or fit you prefer. The basic idea with all of the inspiration photos that I have been looking at is it all comes down to fabric choice and accessories. So grab some fringe and let's get started. Okay, for the first 20s dress we are going to do, I cut out the slim version of the drama dress. So you'll cut a front and a back. The only modification I made on this one was I did lower the neckline just a little bit. You can also add a V-neck. I've seen a lot of 20s dresses like this that have a V-cut in the front. Also, this fabric is from Boho Fabrics. I will link that into the description. They have a ton of special occasion fabrics like this. I did fussy cut it, so the design ends up close to center, but you can always color block just regular stripes or other fabrics to get this type of look. I also cut lining for the same as these two. I did a front and a back with a lining fabric just because this is sheer and see-through underneath. But I did cut the outer dress with the regular cut line at the bottom, and then I did the lining with a short cut line, so it's about 3 inches shorter than the dress fabric. I also stole some cap sleeves from the Mix It Up pattern, but you can use whatever sleeves you want or make it sleeveless. And then I also ordered some fringe for the bottom of the dress. This is 8-inch, but you can use whatever length you're comfortable with. And we're going to give this one a go and see how it turns out. Okay, so I sewed the shoulder seams together on the main fabric pieces of the dress, and now I'm going to do the same with the lining. So now that we have the lining shoulder seam sewn, we're going to lay the dress and the lining right sides together and sew all the way around the neck opening, and you're going to match up your shoulder seams on both pieces. Okay, so now that you have your neckline sewn, I went ahead and understitched it so that the lining sits nicer along the neckline, or you can top stitch it too, or you can leave it as is, which way you prefer. Now we're going to add the sleeves, and when we do this, we're going to treat the lining and the dress as one piece. So you can baste along the edge here to keep these two pieces together while you add the sleeves, or you can just go ahead and add them to these two layers. But once you get done adding those sleeves, don't sew down the side seam yet because we need to hem our lining. Okay, so now that the sleeves are added, and you can tell I kind of fussy cut those a little bit too so that they would have the same design on each side. If you need help with installing sleeves in the drama dress, you can check out the drama dress sew along video. I will link that in the description as well. So now that your sleeves and your neckline are sewn, we are going to hem the lining fabric. I know that the side seams aren't sewn yet, but we are going to hem both the front and the back of the lining, and we're just going to fold it back a half an inch, and so 1/8 of an inch away from the fold, or you can hem it however you normally hem your dresses. So now that your lining is hemmed, we are going to place the dress right sides together with the lining and the main fabric. Like the main fabric will be facing each other with the lining on the back side of each. And then we're going to pin or clip all along the side seam and the underarm seam up here, lining up this seam. So your two main fabric dress pieces will be sandwiched in between the lining. Make sure when you get down to here that your linings line up in your seam. You can always sew them separately, but I just feel like this way, this keeps the lining sitting correctly. It doesn't ride up when you wear the dress. So we're going to do that on both sides. And then all we have left to do is hem the sleeves, and then we're going to add the fringe. Okay, so the dress is nearly done. I went ahead and hemmed my sleeves. So all we have left to do is the actual hem of the dress. And what I do when adding fringe or any kind of trim, I always place the trim right sides together, and I start at the seam over here, and then you just place the trim and be very careful not to disrupt the flow of the fringe, and just sew it. I would say I wouldn't get too close to the edge of here, otherwise your fringe will just fall off. So whenever you, I would just do like 1/8 of an inch away from here, or 1/4 of an inch, I guess, as long as you're not up to this very last row of stitches, because if you go over that, your fringe will pull right out of your seam. So here is the finished dress. I really like that I stuck with this fabric. The sequins and the design of it just give it a really cool effect. Like I said before, you could always color block, do a V-neck with another color block to make like a diamond in the middle, or any other kind of fabric design that you wanted to do would work really well. I really like that it's lined and that the main fabric is sheer, and you can see the lining stops above the hem of the dress, and the fringe just finishes it off. And I really love it. I've seen other inspirational photos where it's cut like shark bite, I guess, like jagged cuts, and then the fringe goes up and down like this. That's another option that you can do too. But I really like the way that this one turned out. It's nice, sweet, simple, and it definitely gives off a 20s vibe. So now that our fitted drama dress is finished, let's move on to the full version. Just so you're aware, the fringe that we're using for the full version is really long. This is 40-inch trim that I found at Mood. I'm going to link that into the description just in case you want to check that out. They have a bunch of different colors, and I got black and silver. So we're going to see how this works out on the drama dress. Okay, for the second dress, I cut the front and back dress pieces on the full cut line so they are wider. So I have a front piece and a back piece, and I cut the keyhole in the back because we're going to be putting fringe around the neckline, and since the fringe doesn't stretch, we're going to need a little bit more area to open up so that we can get our head through. So I did a keyhole cutout in the back, just use the keyhole piece, cut it in the back on the fold. Then I also cut the same thing for the two lining pieces. The lining pieces in the drama dress are for the collar piece. So instead of the collar, we're going to be adding fringe. And then I also cut two armbands because I'm not even going to try to burrito roll this and pull all of this fabric through this tiny little shoulder seam. So I'm just going to finish it with some binding. So I cut two pieces for that. So these are all of your cut pieces. Plus we're going to have this super long fringe that I just showed you. So the first thing we're going to do, just like the last dress, is place the front and back pieces right sides together. and sew down the shoulder seams. And you're going to do that on the dress pieces and the lining pieces. And then you're going to open up your fabric. This fabric is stretch velvet, by the way, and it's from Sincerely Riley, and it's a really cool silver color. I will link that in the description as well. So the first thing we want to do is, when we have our shoulder seam sewn, is we want to take care of all the detail around the neckline. Not in the keyhole, just from this point all the way around to this point. So just like in the hem of the last dress, we're going to place fringe all the way around here, and we're going to baste it from end to end, from point to point. And I'm going to use 2 layers of fringe. I think I got 2 different colors, and I think that'll give like a really cool effect doing 2 different colors, but we're going to see how heavy that makes it first. I'm going to baste one down first, and then we will see what the second one looks like. Okay, so I have the fringe basted on all the way around the neckline. It's looking a little wild right now, but once it's hanging on the mannequin, I think it'll look really, really good. So now that we have that finished, before we add the lining to the neckline, I did go ahead and add a little loop of elastic. I couldn't find black, so white it is. I'll just use a big button to cover that up when we add that at the end. But make sure you add your little loop of elastic. I think I cut it like 2 inches long. I'm not sure. Just enough to get a button through when we're finished. So now we can put the lining right sides together with this and sew all the way around the neckline. So here's the lining pinned in place or clipped in place. Now, when you sew this together, just make sure you go really, really slow and stay on the outside of your basting stitches, like just outside of them, so that go slow so that these tails of the fringe don't get caught in between here and you have loops of fringe. Just make sure that you're staying or keeping the fabric nice and flat when it goes through the machine, and you should be good to go. Okay, so after sewing the neckline and around the keyhole, I threw it on the mannequin really quick just to kind of check the weight. And there is sort of an issue. Here's the elastic piece, and then we'll put a button on this other side to close it. But there is a little issue with the lining wanting to spill out just from the weight of all of this fringe, because it is pretty heavy. But I do have a fix for that, and I will work on that later. But first we're going to finish the dress, but it is looking really, really cool. Okay, so now you can place the dress right sides together just like we did in the slim version, and you're going to line up the lining from the underarm all the way down to the hem. You can hem the lining piece if you want to. I did on the first one because you can see the lining through the dress, but for this one, no one's going to see the lining, so I'm just going to leave the edges raw. So you will sew through all 4 layers of the lining and dress to here. Make sure that they're lined up at the same spot, and then you'll finish those seams, and you'll do the same on the other side. Just make sure you kind of give this a shake and make sure that all the fringe settles down on this side whenever you're sewing it over here, just to keep the fringe out of the way of the seam. Okay, so now that the side seams are sewn, I just finished the armhole with a band. You can do a binding. If you're doing sleeves, you can just finish those like we did in the last video. If you need help with the band in the drama dress sew along tutorial, there's a part where I sew the neckband, and you'll just do the armband exactly the same way. I feel like explaining that over and over in every video kind of gets a little bit boring, so we're going to skip past that. And I added a button to the other side of the keyhole, so now we can slip that elastic around it and close it up. So it's looking really good. I do need to hem it, and then I'm going to trim off all of the fringe along the edge. And side note, if you're using sequins fabric, it gets all over the floor. Oh my God. Okay, so remember when I said the lining was kind of falling towards the front just because the weight of all of this fringe? I decided to take a length of this fringe and braid it, and I'm gonna like sew it along the neckline like so, and somehow tuck it in back into the back. But I think I'm gonna have to hand sew it because I don't think my sewing machine is going to go over all of this. So after that, it's hemmed, it's trimmed, and everything should be finished. And I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to try this one on. So the neckline is all finished. I feel like this dress turned out a little bit more 2020 than 1920. I can't stop like combing through this fringe. So I hope everyone liked this tutorial. I hope I didn't go too fast through the steps. I just feel like sometimes I repeat myself over and over again on some of the instructions. And most of these videos are just kind of like my thought process as I'm going along while I'm sewing. So I am going to pop a few photos in at the end. So I feel like Roaring 20s dresses come down to just a simple dress with a lot of added accessories. I feel like you could use multiple patterns for this. I know if you wanted a bodycon, really slim fit version, you could always try the rival dress. And also if you wanted to check out a pant version of a 1920s outfit, you can head over to the blog. Kelly Nicholas did a really cool tutorial on how to create that kind of outfit. So thank you all for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed watching me put these dresses together. I hope it was informative and inspiring. Make sure you're following G&G on all of our social media, linked in the description. Subscribe to this channel so you get notifications, especially about the new vlog that I'll be posting next week. If you have any questions, feel free to join our Facebook group or send us an email at georgeandgingerpatternco@gmail.com. I'm going to get out of this studio. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next week. Bye.